Book 1, Chapter 14 of the Adventures of Gil Blas of Santillane by Alain René Lesage, translated by Tobias Smollett. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Book 1, Chapter 14, Donna Mencia's reception of him at Burgos. I was no sluggard, but got up the next morning betimes. I paid my bill to the landlady, who was already stirring, and seemed a little less lofty and in better humour than the evening before, a circumstance I attributed to the endeavours of 3 kind guardsmen belonging to the Holy Brotherhood. These gentlemen had slept in the inn. They were evidently on a very intimate footing with the hostess, and doubtless it was for guests of such note that all the beds were bespoke. I inquired in the town my way to the castle, where I wanted to present myself. By accident I made up to a man not unlike my landlord at Pegnaflor. He was not satisfied with answering my question to the point, but informed me that Don Ambrosio had been dead 3 weeks, and the Marchioness, his lady, had taken the resolution of retiring to a convent at Burgos, which he named. I proceeded immediately towards that town, instead of taking the road to the castle, as I had first meant to do, and flew at once to the place of Donna Mencia's retreat. I besought the attendant at the turning box to tell that lady that a young man just discharged from prison at Astorga wanted to speak with her. The nun went on the message immediately. On her return, she showed me into a parlour, where I did not wait long before Don Ambrosio's widow appeared at the grate in deep mourning. "You are welcome," said the lady. "4 days ago I wrote to a person at Astorga to pay you a visit as from me, and to tell you to come and see me the moment you were released from prison. I had no doubt of your being discharged shortly. What I told the corregidor in your exculpation was enough for that. An answer was brought that you had been set at liberty, but that no one knew what was become of you. I was afraid of not seeing you any more, and losing the pleasure of expressing my gratitude. Never mind," added she, observing my confusion at making my appearance in so wretched a garb. "Your dress is of very little consequence. After the important services you have rendered me, I should be the most ungrateful of my sex if I were to do nothing for you in return. I undertake, therefore, to better your condition. It is my duty, and the means are in my power. My fortune is large enough to pay my debt of obligation to you, without putting myself to inconvenience. You know," continued she, "my story up to the time when we both were committed to prison. I will now tell you what has happened to me since. When the corregidor at Astorga had sent me to Burgos, after having heard from my own lips a faithful recital of my adventures, I presented myself at the castle of Ambrosio. My return thither excited extreme surprise, but they told me that it was too late. The Marquis, as if he had been thunderstruck at my flight, fell sick, and the physicians despaired of his recovery. Here was a new incident in the melancholy tragedy of my fate. Yet I ordered my arrival to be announced. The next moment I ran into his chamber, and threw myself on my knees by his bedside, with a face running down with tears, and a heart oppressed with the most lively sorrow. "Who sent for you hither?" said he as soon as he saw me. "Are you come to contemplate your own contrivance? Was it not enough to have deprived me of life, but was it necessary to satisfy your heart's desire to be an eye-witness of my death?" "My lord," replied I, "Ines must have told you that I fled with my first husband, and had it not been for the sad accident which has taken him from me for ever, you never would have seen me more." At the same time I acquainted him that Don Alvar had been killed by a banditti, whose captive I had consequently been in a subterraneous dungeon. After relating the particulars of my story to the end, Don Ambrosio held out to me his hand. It is enough, said he affectionately, I will make no more complaints. Alas! have I in fact any right to reproach you? You were thrown once more in the way of a beloved husband, and gave me up to follow his fortunes. Can I blame such an instance of your affection? No, madam, it would have been vain to resist the will of fate. For that reason I gave orders not to pursue you. In my rival himself I could not but respect the sacred rights with which he was invested, and even the impulse of your flight seemed to have been communicated by some superior power. To close all with an act of justice, and in the spirit of reconciliation, your return hither has re-established you completely in my affection. Yes, my dear Mencia, your presence fills me with joy, but alas, I shall not long be sensible to it. I feel my last hour to be at hand. No sooner are you restored to me than I must bid you an eternal farewell. At these touching expressions my tears flowed in torrents. I felt and expressed as much affliction as the human heart is capable of containing. I question whether Don Alvar's death, doting on him as I did, had cost me more bitter lamentations. Don Ambrosio had given way to no mistaken presage of his death, which happened on the following day, and I remained mistress of a considerable jointure settled on me at our marriage. But I shall take care to make no unworthy use of it. The world shall not see me, young as I still am, wantoning in the arms of a third husband. Besides that such levity seems irreconcilable with the feelings of any but the profligate of our sex, I will frankly own the relish of life to be extinct in me, so that I mean to end my days in this convent, and to become a benefactress to it. Such was Donna Mencia's discourse about her future plans. She then drew a purse from beneath her robe, and put it into my hands with this address: Here are 100 ducats, simply to furnish out your wardrobe. That done, come and see me again. I mean not to confine my gratitude within such narrow bounds. I returned her 1,000 thanks, and promised solemnly not to quit Burgos without taking leave of her. Having given this pledge, which I had every inclination to redeem, I went to look out for some house of entertainment. Entering the first I met with, I asked for a room. To parry the ill opinion my frock might convey of my finances, I told the landlord that, however appearances might be against me, I could pay for my night's lodging as well as a better dressed gentleman. At this speech the landlord, whose name was Majuelo, a great banterer in a coarse way, running over me with his eyes from top to toe, answered with a cool sarcastic grin that there was no need of any such assurance. It was evident I should pay my way liberally, for he discovered something of nobility through my disguise, and had no doubt but I was a gentleman in very easy circumstances. I saw plainly that the rascal was laughing at me, and to stop his humour before it became too convulsive, gave him a little insight into the state of my purse. I went so far as to count over my ducats on a table before him, and perceived my coin to have inclined him to a more respectful judgment. I begged the favour of him to send for a tailor. A broker would be better, said he. He will bring all sorts of apparel, and you will be dressed up out of hand. I approved of this advice, and determined to follow it. But as the day was on the point of closing, I put off my purchase till the morrow, and thought only of getting a good supper to make amends for the miserable fare I had taken up with since my escape from the forest. End of Book 1, Chapter 14.